Hello, welcome. Episode 4, Let's Start a Cult podcast. We made it to episode 4, Matt.
That's good, isn't it?
That's very good. It's very good. We're still here. We're still going. So what have you been up to?
All the Radiohead stuff on the radiohead.co.uk. I'm watching all the old footage and stuff. It's very inspiring, interesting stuff. What are you up to?
Well, funny enough, actually, last night I came across the Pink Floyd been putting up some of their gigs. And I must admit, I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm mellowing with age, or I don't know. But I watched some of the Pulse shows, or the one they put up there, and it was I watched a little bit of it, and it was very enjoyable.
Did they have the slap bass outro to Echoes?
I didn't actually see that bit. I've skipped over that.
The only reason I can't watch that Pulse bit is because they do a slap bass part in Echoes, and I just can't watch it. It makes me feel ill. But my favourite Floyd live thing is the Dave Gilmour live in Gdansk video.
Oh, that's really good.
It's superb. Yeah, Rick Wright and Dave Gilmour doing Floyd, and they do it really well. I mean, it's really classy.
Yeah.
And I think that's better than the 90s Floyd stuff.
Yeah, you're probably right. I mean, to be honest with you, I only got a few tracks in. They hadn't switched too many of the chorus pedals on at that point, so it was still okay.
I like chorus pedals. I'm going through a bit of a chorus pedal phase at the minute.
Really?
Like the 80s Alex Lifeson sounds. I like all those. If you listen to like 90% of modern indie rock, it's all got loads of chorus on it. That's
very true. It's like putting chili in your food. You know, you want a bit of it, but too much, and it's terrible.
Have you heard? Who was I listening to? Like Mac DeMarco and stuff like that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're all over it.
It's slow vibrato chorus.
Yeah.
But there was the Phoenix Foundation. They're another one. They got that cleany sort of thing.
Right.
But there's loads of like stuff for the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
That chorus sound's come in again, hasn't it?
Yeah. It's definitely more that kind of knackered VHS sound, wavy. The one thing I do think that is completely unforgivable is when you hear people putting chorus on DI'd acoustic guitars.
Oh, that's awful. Yeah, it's a horrible sound.
There's no need for that.
More like Slow Dive, Allison, off Savaki.
Yeah.
That sort of slow chorus. I like that.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of that.
Like, it's a bit sort of more like the shoegazy sort of sound. I like that.
Yeah, that's good.
That's cool.
Yeah, we like that.
So we're going to talk about the Stabbing a Dead Horse tour today, aren't we?
And what is the Stabbing a Dead Horse tour, Matt? Or what was it?
Basically, we've recorded all this stuff. We got Steve in the band. That was the story so far from the previous podcast.
That's right.
We've just done the on VHS EP, and the thing was we're going to go out and play live now, as that's what bands did in those days. I mean, really, now I think if I was starting a band now, I'd be focusing on building a following on YouTube and building a following on Spotify, and then worrying about playing live. But those days, it was very much a case of we put the song on Bandcamp. We've got a Twitter following, we've got a Facebook following, and we put the odd video on YouTube, but YouTube wasn't a community platform in quite the same way it is now. And the same with Spotify and the streaming service. It wasn't quite the community-based thing, was it, that it is now? It
was still sort of like just transitioning out of the MySpace era, wasn't it?
When we started the Fierce and the Dead, we had a MySpace, didn't we?
God, we did, yeah.
And when we put the first EP out, we'd send people to our MySpace. Hey, check out my MySpace.
That's right.
Big up my MySpace. And, that shows how incredibly old we are.
Didn't MySpace shut down and they lost all the files or something?
They lost everything, wow. Yeah. They lost every single track. There's a whole era of sort of late 2000s metalcore lost forever. Those men who do that crab metal and all that stuff. The men with the funny attack type stuff lost forever.
Gone.
Thankfully. I wouldn't say more of a loss, more of a purge, really. But all that stuff's that's gone now. So we've done all that, and so like I say, culture was in a bit of a different space to it all now. And we just had Prog magazine come out and got it's sort of taken and just under their wing, thankfully. And that that was something we didn't expect. When we started the band, we were sort of pitching it as we thought we'd be and we offered a deal by some of the post-rock labels, didn't we?
We did, yeah.
And I thought, I'm glad we didn't do that now. But it was, that was kind of the direction we were going in. But then prog sort of came along and sort of took us under their wing, and it's remarkable how you think back. It was quite different then. So we got all our stuff on Bandcamp. We were promoting it via Twitter and Facebook, and some forums, and the Hype Machine was a big thing then, and we had some tracks on the Hype Machine, which was like a blog aggregator, and there was a lot of blogs about.
It seems so long ago.
It does. It was a different culture, wasn't it? And like now, things are more driven by forums on Facebook groups, Reddit, YouTube, and things like that. But then it was more driven by the blogs, wasn't it? The blogs. It was a really big thing. So I got my track on Cheesy What's It blog or whatever, and it was a massive deal to be on there, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
Like to get those sort of blogs, because people used to look at the Hype Machine for new stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's that they would look at those blogs haven't got the same level of relevance, because people tend to discover a lot of new music via algorithmic discovery via YouTube and Spotify, or via playlists on Spotify, which is semi-curated stuff. So, or they'll listen to their favourite YouTuber and what they're playing in the background of their Twitch stream or whatever. You know what I mean? It's a massive cultural shift. Anyway, so got off tangent already.
You digress.
I digress already. Yeah. Anyway, on Twitter we'd met Carvus from Knifeworld.
You met him first, didn't you?
Yeah, I did a gig. Did a gig with Carvus, and I got talking to him on Twitter and stuff. And then I sort of discovered Cardiacs, because we never really knew Cardiacs, did we?
No. In fact, I was actually introduced to Cardiacs by I recorded a couple of albums with a really excellent band called Silvery.
Oh yeah.
Who, if you imagine, I think the NME described them as Victorian circus punk. If you imagine Blur, Sparks, and Cardiacs, and all the songs were about things from Victoriana, and they wore Victorian policeman outfits on stage. They're
nice guys.
Really nice guys, great fun. But they actually played me Cardiacs first, and then like a couple of years later, we ended up going and meeting Carvus and doing gigs with him. And so for those who don't know, Carvus was actually in the Cardiacs.
He was in Cardiacs. He was in Guapo. Who else? He was in. He'd done like loads of. He'd been in Chrome Hoof.
That's right. Yeah.
And so he was quite. He's in the underground sort of experimental proggy sort of rock scene. He was
man about town.
He was a man about town, and Carvus is a lovely man, and he's always been very kind to me and very supportive. And he was doing that radio show with Steve Davis, wasn't he?
He was, yes.
So he was sort of getting stuff out there like that, and doing that. You're doing this radio show. Trojan Horse was another band we got talking to on. We did a gig with them early on in Salford, didn't we?
Yeah, I think we were introduced to them by some of the people who now run Echoes and Dust.
That's right, yeah. And we basically brought those two bands together via Twitter. Carvus came up with the name Stabbing a Dead Horse. It's from all the band names put together, basically, plus a weird story that Carvus has got about stabbing a dead horse. Matt will,
I'm sure you will, Matt, if you put a link to all the tour diaries we did. And the last one does have the explanation of the name as given by Carvus.
We spoke to Prog Magazine, Rock and Roll, and Zevex about sponsoring the tour, didn't we?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Zevex are a really cool pedal company who make really nice pedals and stuff. Rock and Roller was a kind of underground fanzine at the time. They covered a lot of Melvins and post-rock stuff, and bands like Godspeed You Black Emperor and all that sort of stuff. And then we had Prog Magazine sponsoring it as well. So, as always, it's always a crossover of different things that we tend to be involved in. So Prog ended up sponsoring it, and Jerry's always been, and Joe and the guys at Prog Magazine have been so kind to us and so supportive. And I'll never forget how good they've been to us. And I think they saw it as a start of, and it kind of was, kind of a start of a new scene within the prog thing.
Well, should we give a bit of context? I mean, we kind of like, with Nail and I, come on holiday by accident. We came to prog by accident, didn't we? So we kind of got picked up and sort of, taken under the wing, as you were saying. But I mean, at the time, there was obviously a lot of the legacy prog kind of stuff around. There were a lot of new bands. And then there was us, Knifeworld, Trojan Horse.
Pig Shackle,
Anta, yeah.
And because in the 90s, you had your sort of Ocean Size, It was sort of quite an interesting band, experimental rock band. And stuff like that. And I think Trojan Horse were quite Oceanside's influenced. I think. I mean, they'd probably admit to saying that's a thing for them. And and the Radiohead, and there's lots of things going on that was progressive rock without being progressive rock.
Yeah, it wasn't
small P rather than big P.
It wasn't just Yes and Genesis, was it? It was lots of other things.
And obviously, Carvers had been in Cardiacs, another band who was sort of on the fringes of that, but obviously had their own thing completely in a very original band.
Yeah,
and it's like and then there's stuff like Mr. Bungle and Porcupine Tree as well. There's lots of stuff going on. But then there was like the kind of the neo-prog scene, like IQ and things like that. And then Frost came through, who were, late 2000s, who were kind of neo-prog, but a lot more original and a lot more interesting production stuff. And then, there was this sort of Tiny Fish and those sort of bands. But then, we didn't really fit in with any of that stuff. I mean, we didn't really, and there was kind of 65 Days of Static, all those sort of the post-rocky sort of thing as well, wasn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, a lot of it as well is that our influences, whilst you could call them progressive, maybe not prog, but progressive, but we also had a lot of influences from, a lot of the Sonic Youth, Black Flag, kind of more noise experimentalism, if you want to call it that, as well. So we weren't just about, we're not virtuosos, but we weren't about that kind of thing. We were about being a bit more experimental with the soundscapes, if you want to say it in a pretentious way.
But no, it was just people who just being a bit ambitious with rock music and doing and it was just making tunes for your mates. It wasn't pretentious.
That's right, yeah.
Basically, we didn't really fit in, but those sort of bands that did sort of fit in together.
That's right. Yeah.
So and then prog sort of picked up on it.
That was kind of how it all came together in a very sort of brief way. And we all just said, let's do this. Let's put together 7 dates or 6? I can't remember. How many dates was it?
7.
It was 7, yeah. So we said, let's just do this. Let's just get on with it. We sat down. It was mainly myself and yourself, Matt, Carvus. I remember Chloe from Knifeworld was quite active in this as well. And then obviously Nick and the rest of Trojan Horse. We all put our heads together. We all kind of found different venues, spoke to all the people we knew, and just tried to put it all together, really. Like, as you say, prog were really good, sponsoring us, giving us a lot of a bit of a run up to it. And I can't really remember why we chose these venues. I think it was just we were looking for sort of reasonable sized venues, promoters that would put us on. There wasn't too much choosing. It was more sort of who would have us, who would have this ragtag band. We just said, let's get it all together. Knifeworld were going to be the headliners, and then us and Trojan Horse were going to alternate on the opening and the second slot. And also as well, we had Knifeworld had as their driver the rather excellent Steve Inman, who's gone on to be involved with Haken and Leprous, I think he's involved with now as well, isn't he? As management and tour management and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, he's been on tour with Devon Townsend. He's done all those cruising stuff, hasn't
That's
he?
right, yeah. So Steve was driving Knifeworld, and he's also was a member of a band called Pig Shackle. So on 2 or 3 of the dates, Pig Shackle also played as well, and they were a sight to behold. Again, another band that didn't quite fit in with anybody else, but found a home with us. So there we go.
They're amazing. Yeah, I mean, Pig Shackle were they were incredibly complex. I mean, they were like I don't know, like Dillinger Escape Plan or something complex, weren't they? Incredible band.
Yeah, very much so, very much so. So there we go. Knifeworld had their own van, carrying most of the equipment, and then we had us and Trojan Horse in a minibus with a load more equipment, and it was like a bit like Cliff Richard, all going on a summer holiday, wasn't it?
In October.
In October.
The end of October. It was the end of October, start of November. Wasn't
it was, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, it was fine. Their van broke down, didn't it? Twice, I think.
Twice, yeah. It was a bit of a convoy situation going on, and sometimes it was somewhere between sort of convoy and Cannonball Run, going in between the gigs. Yeah. Because sometimes it was, we'll get to that. But the first date we booked, Bristol, the Stag and Hounds.
Stag and Hound, yeah.
Which is
Don't look for it's not there anymore.
Oh, yeah, which is.
I think it's still there, actually.
I think it is. Yeah, I think it's under new management or something. But yeah, Anta, the excellent chaps in Anta, they organised that for us, and I think they were originally going to play, and then for some reason they couldn't. So it was the opening act. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Matt. It might have been just the guys DJing, but I think it was the opening act doing some quite experimental stuff, like synthy stuff or something like that. I can't remember. Was Bill Ward's son?
Aaron, yeah.
That's it. And he played, didn't he?
Yeah, very nice chap. Yeah, very nice chap.
I'm glad you verified that, because I didn't know if I just imagined that. But yeah, so we went there. We played there, and it went quite well. It all sort of worked, didn't it? Everybody had a good time, and an audience turned up.
Yeah, it was good. I was pleased with the turnout for that one.
Yeah, which was very edifying for us. I mean, You have to understand, we got in these vans and drove off without really knowing what was going to happen. We were hearing sort of ticket sales as we were driving to all the different venues, weren't we?
I mean, the thing is as well, at that point, we didn't really know how to promote things. I mean, we kind of knew to get press, but we didn't know how to use adverts. We didn't know how to use PR, really target PR like we do now. We didn't really know what we were doing, to be honest. And we didn't know who the audience for this sort of music was either. And when we got to the gigs, we kind of discovered it was a lot of people who are into cardiacs. So you get a lot of people sort of asking questions about cardiacs. You'd get the people who'd followed my solo stuff, who had bought all the loop type label, the loop stuff I've been doing. And then you get people who read Prog magazine. So they were the kind of three sort of areas you got people from coming to the shows.
Yeah.
And then people who were just a bit curious about what was it all about. So, and like mates and stuff, like friends and people from other bands, a lot of musicians there. I remember hanging out with a lot of musicians from other bands who came to see it, and so Andy Tillison there and Matt Cohen, and just lots of people who were very kind to us, and very supportive. It was pretty good. I mean, Bristol was busy, wasn't it?
Bristol was busy. Cardiff was fairly busy as well. That was the next night.
Manchester was very good because Trojan Horse bought their people.
That's right. And I remember that was the Ruby Lounge, wasn't it, in Manchester?
Yeah, it was a good show. That was really good.
That was a good show. I remember saying hello to Mark Radcliffe was there as well.
He came to that, didn't he? And yeah, that was good. And then we did Leeds.
The Broodnell Club.
I remember Andy Tillison coming and talking to Andy Tillison. I remember it was very quiet, that one, wasn't it?
It was very quiet. That was, again, I think...
It was too big a venue, wasn't it?
It was too big a venue, and I think as well, it was some of the promoters that had gotten involved with it. Like I say, if this was done now, we'd probably end up promoting it ourselves. But some of the promoters, I don't think they quite, as we didn't understand what we'd put together here. It was like one of those old, soul reviews, but with weird bands. And so nobody really knew what the audience was. And I think some of the guys, some of the people, the promoters, kind of thought, Cardiacs fans are rabid fans. They'll turn up, and so didn't really maybe promote it as well as it could be, or you always see, don't you, with Hollywood films that are kind of sold wrong. A film that's not a comedy sold as a comedy or something. You know what I mean? This kind of thing. And I think there was a few little hiccups like that.
The thing is, as well, promoters can only do so much. I mean, they can flyer. If people don't know what the flyer names on the flyer are, you know what I mean? They can't do a lot with it. And also, really, what a Get Alive thing is a meet-up for fans of a band.
Yes.
I don't think anybody goes out and thinks, you know what, I want to go, I don't know who these bands are, but I'll give it a go.
Yeah.
I don't think there's many people who do that. I think there are some, but that's a tiny, tiny percentage. It's mostly a meet-up for fans of a band.
Yeah.
So I think those gigs were very much, like I say, it was that demographic of prog people, Cardiacs fans, and people who sort of followed my loop stuff. I think, and like in Manchester, you'd have a lot more Trojan Horse bought a lot of people.
Yeah.
And who was that band that played with us in Glasgow? We Are Scientists?
We Are Scientists or something like that. Yeah, lovely chaps. And that was the Glasgow gig was put on by James T. Mackay of the Cosmic Dead.
Was it?
Yeah, he was the chap running that one in the 13th Note, wasn't it? And I think actually that gig we were put onto James by R.M. Hubbard, who we'd also made friends with.
It was Hubby's gig, wasn't it? Yeah. We'd done a festival with one of the first gigs we did as the Face of the Dead was a festival that Hubby was playing as well.
That's right, yeah.
And R.M. Hubbard, and we got to be mates with him. He was just a really nice, awesomely talented man.
That's great.
And he was a great guy to hang out with. He was very kind to us as well, really supportive. Yeah, he set that one up for us. And yeah, it was good. That was a really good one, the Glasgow show.
It was a bit hairy. I remember basically, so we'd played in Leeds the night before, and then the Fierce and the Dead Trojan Horse van, we headed up to Glasgow. And then we got word on the way up there that Knifeworld had broken down.
Yeah.
As again, if you look at the tour diary videos, you'll get to see some of that. And yeah, I think they were sat on the road for several hours, weren't they?
Yeah. It was dodgy whether they were going to get here at all, wasn't it?
That's right. Yeah, and I remember I think they pretty much turned up, like half an hour before doors or something like that. Because you got to remember as well that they were also carrying a lot of the equipment.
Yeah. I mean, it was a funny because it was a different time because as well then you couldn't research things and get a heads up on things like you can now. You know what I mean? You can look up things online in a way because we didn't really know what the venue was going to be like or anything, did we? Really?
No. We were turning up blind to a lot of these places.
But we book Fist of the Dead gigs now. We kind of know exactly what we're doing with them, don't we?
Knifeworld as well. You got to remember at that point were it 8-piece.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. So them turning up to some venues, like I say, the 13th Note in Glasgow is quite small, brilliant, but quite small.
That's lovely venue.
Yeah, and so they only just fitted in, but it was great fun. That was one of my favourite ones, I think, the Glasgow gig.
So after Glasgow, we went to
Norwich.
Yeah.
Because we're not very good at planning routes. Stuart actually used to play in a hardcore band years before, and he actually beat this record by playing in Glasgow one night and then playing in Brighton the next night. So, not great. So not quite as bad as that.
I can't remember if it's an 8-hour or 10-hour drive from Glasgow to Norwich. It's a long way there, wasn't it?
Yeah. I do remember as well that we was all in a bit of a state because accommodation-wise on this tour, everybody was kind of getting what they could. So some nights we were quite lucky, weren't we? Most nights we managed to get hotels.
Yeah.
That we managed to book beforehand. Some people were crashing around people's houses. Some nights we stayed around friends' houses. And I remember on that particular night, Trojan Horse had booked a hotel room.
Yeah.
But in fact, there's two stories there. Trojan Horse had booked a hotel room, but they'd only got one room for two people. And then they tried to sneak the rest of the band in and got caught. So I seem to remember Eden, I think it was Eden and Guy, the keyboard player and the drummer, ended up sleeping in a van outside the hotel in Glasgow in November.
In November?
I'm pretty sure that was Glasgow.
You'd never even consider that now, though, would you? Why? We used to have premiere inns every night.
Yeah, we tried. Yeah, we slept around people's houses some nights, and also as well, that was the same night that we did stay in a hotel that particular night. And myself and Matt, we had a room, and then Stuart and Steve had got another room booked. Unfortunately, Stuart had booked it for the night before, so when he turned up,
oh no!
Yeah, I think I think the rider at the Glasgow gig was basically McEwen's as well. So he managed to do a deal with the night porter, the night manager guy, to basically be allowed into our room. Do you remember that? The guy gave him a load of bedding. And yeah, he did. They did sort of like let him in through the fire.
I think he bugged him a tenner or something.
But he said, if there's a fire, he said, can you run away because you won't be registered in?
The other thing as well is, and it's probably the most useful thing you could tell any touring band, is if you become a member of the Premiering Club thing.
Oh yeah,
like a priority member, you can get a rooms from £10 to £20 a night for 2 people. So if you can get it for £5 to £10 a night, you can do a 7-night tour. Then that's with about 70, 80 quid.
Yeah,
it's doable, and that it makes logistics worth it. And also, Premier Inns are lovely, really.
Yeah,
I love
yeah.
Premier Inn.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is, of course, you have to book this quite far in advance. Don't try and book it for next week.
Yeah.
So that was Glasgow. So we've already kind of broken ourselves. Amongst other things, I remember once driving down the road, Guy, Trojan Horse's drummer, was driving the van. We just dropped some people off at somebody's house where they were going to crash the night. I think it was Carver's. And we were driving down the road in the minibus with all the equipment in the back. And I think Guy said, "It's a bit chilly, isn't it?" And then we turned around and realised we'd been driving, halfway down the dual carriageway with the back doors open. Luckily, nothing had fallen out.
Oh, my God, yeah.
Luckily, nothing had fallen out. But we didn't even notice. I mean, people always think, like, rock and roll on tour. This isn't Guns N' Roses. This isn't Metallica. We would drive to a gig, get out, sound check, loading all the kit in and out ourselves. Admittedly, there was 4 people in Trojan Horse, 4 people in Fierce and the Dead, 8 people in Knifeworld. I think it was 8. I'll count them in a minute. And, assorted other people around us. But it was still a lot of equipment. You get in, you do the gig. Invariably, by the time we'd finished, it would be, packed everything up. It'd be 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. You then drive around whatever town you're in, trying to find wherever it was you were staying that night. And then because we'd also, really worked out the plan wonderfully, we'd be getting up at sort of 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning to make it to the next venue. So yeah, it was quite tiring.
It was tiring. We did it. I didn't do any driving, but you guys did all the driving, didn't you? And it was a tough thing for you doing the driving as well.
Yeah.
And I was drinking, so I was busy as well. But I think. Because we were in our, this was 10 years ago, and we were a little bit younger, and we were staying up. I mean, I remember going out with Carvis and that till like 2 or 3 in the morning a few times.
Mm.
It was, it's all a bit of a blur, to be honest.
Yeah.
But
and thinking it'll be fine.
I do remember going out. Yeah, we were a little bit younger then, so we could sort of cope with it a little bit more. But obviously now, I probably wouldn't do that so much. You know what I mean? If we're quite good now, aren't we?
Yeah,
we do gigs.
Yeah, we try our best.
We're not calm.
We're not calm.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was we got as far as Glasgow. Then we'd headed on this epic voyage down to Norwich. Now Norwich was an interesting one. So I think it was a place was it called the B2? Nice venue.
B2, yeah.
Yeah,
nice venue, but no one there. I mean, it was the worst turnout of the gigs, wasn't it?
It wasn't great. It was a few. It was more a case of, again, I think the promoter had tried his best, and hadn't really understood what it was. We turned up to the venue. The sound guy hadn't been told to get there till later, because I think he was used to just sort of, rocking up an hour before doors, plugging in whatever generic rock band it was. And the promoter hadn't told the sound guy to get there earlier. So anyway, we turn up, we all sit around. Eventually the sound guy turns up at about 7 or something like that. And I remember him going up to Carvis and saying, "Right, what do you need?" And Carvis turning around and going, "Right, this is the horn section," and seeing the guy's face just go, "Oh no." And he to his credit, he managed to get it all set up in about half an hour. It was badly planned. We had a rider. I think we'd all just turned up from Glasgow, and I think the guy had provided us with 4 vegetarian pizzas for 16 people.
Oh God! Yeah.
So there was a lot of people disappearing down the kebab shop or wherever. We had quite a few equipment malfunctions on that night, didn't we?
That was the night Carvis restrung my guitar, because Carvis used to be Cardiac's roadie, and he's incredibly good at guitar tech stuff on the choir.
Oh, he is, yeah.
So he very kindly restrung my guitar mid-step and managed to get it back to me. But I mean, I can't really remember much about that show, to be honest. I remember Pete from Burning Shed was there, and hanging out with Pete, and I remember very little about it, to be honest.
The thing I remember is that So we'd come up from Glasgow, where you'd been quite brutal with your guitar the night before and had smashed it on the floor, and the input had fallen out of it. So when we got to play, because we were, it was there wasn't enough time to sort of do too much mucking around. You were down to one guitar because your spare was now falling apart.
Yeah.
One song in, your spare guitar snapped a string.
Yeah.
At which point, Nick from Trojan very kindly lent you his spare guitar, which also didn't work.
Oh no, yeah, and it had a tiny strap on it. So it looked like I was playing a banjo. And it's absolutely ridiculous.
Nick's not a small guy, but he's quite tall. But he has his guitar quite higher than you do. And obviously, anybody that knows Matt's quite a tall man. And I remember you putting it over. And it did look like a banjo on you.
I'm glad there's no photos of that. I'll tell you, all right, Wally. Just all that stuff, all everything. It was good character building, though. I mean, and I think when we got to the next one, the next show was great, wasn't it?
Well, yeah. So throughout the week, I mean, for us, it was such a learning experience because learning how to perform the material. We'd actually got a new track, Arc, that we'd started playing on this tour as well. So that was kind of, new to us as well to be playing that. And it was really formative for us to be playing with these other, really great musicians, being in that environment. And really, I guess in a way, it wasn't so much that, we played wonderfully at all these gigs or anything like that. It was just that we learned and so much, and by the end of it we knew how to present this material. We'd been in bands for years, but we'd been in bands with singers and fairly generic, if you want to call it that kind of stuff, and so we were still trying to work out how to perform this stuff, weren't we? And I think it all really came together. We'd played 6 gigs at this point across the country, and then we headed back down to London for the last show, the Lexington. Throughout the week, Prog Magazine had been running our daily video diaries. We'd done various competitions and things, and Prog were amazing, really, really amazing. They were so supportive of us, and they were the ones really pushing it for us on social media and all this kind of stuff, weren't they?
Yeah, they were great, and the entire underground weird music scene. We've been very lucky in the amount of support we've had actually from a lot of different people. So, like David at Bad Elephant, and all these sort of people have been really kind to us. Roger, all these sort of guys have been really kind and supportive for a long time. So we've been very lucky, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was. I mean, so by the time we got to Lexington, it was amazing to see. It was almost sold out, wasn't it?
It was sold out. We actually found out on the way down to London. There were phone calls between the two different vans saying that we'd sold out.
Okay.
So it was amazing. Yeah. So we turned up, full house. At that point, I think everybody had dusted off all the cobwebs. Lexington's a great venue, good sound. It just felt very comfortable. A lot of our friends and family were there as well. And pretty much a lot of the prog scene kind of came out for it as well, didn't they? A lot of people, because I think word had kind of got around that there was this strange new bands kind of,
Yeah, I think Cell from Amplifier was there. Can't remember who else. But a lot of people who were like, a lot of my mates were there, and a lot of our friends. And Cardiac's always had a very strong following in London as well. So, and like Carvis is a very popular gentleman, and he's got loads of friends, and all the guys in in Knifeworld are there's lovely people, and they've got loads of friends as well. So it was like a real sort of friends and family type do, weren't it?
It was, yeah.
But like 250 people, it was great. So. Yeah. That was really cool, and we all got up at the end and sang one of the Knifeworld songs, didn't we?
Yeah, it was. By this point, we were all, I don't know how to describe it, malnourished, dehydrated, probably drunk too much, probably whatever too much, very tired. And it was cathartic.
I must have, because my little boy was very young, and I was just very glad to get home to the baby and the family and that. And it makes you realise, because I mean that's the longest sort of stretch of continuous touring we've done. Mm-hmm. Just that's week, and so I can only imagine what it's like to do months on the road and stuff.
Yeah.
and it's quite a. We tend to do things now where we'll either play a festival or we'll play like a one-off or a couple of shows in a row, and normally we arrange it so we know that pretty much all our crowd will be there. But then we were so blind about it, we didn't know what we were doing.
No,
and being part of that whole sort of. It was a bit like being a pirate because we were all on this sort of voyage together. And we'd become quite good friends over the course of the gigs and stuff. And I have to say, there wasn't a single person on that. Everybody was really nice and really cool to hang out with.
Everybody chipped in. Everybody pulled their weight, didn't they?
Yeah, it was awesome. I couldn't wish to hang out with nicer people. And I certainly think we learned from playing with Knifeworld that, their material was very hard to play. And I think we certainly learned about playing that level of professionalism.
Mm-hmm.
Trojan Horse, just really great live act at the time, and even though they couldn't finish the set on time to save their lives, they were really inspiring to be around because they had loads of energy, and they were a really exciting live band, and it did feel like there was a little movement happening. And we got to the end of that gig, and we also, I think, I certainly came away from it thinking, here we go, things are going, this is going well.
Yeah.
This was 2012, the end of 2012, and after that, there was a really good review in Prog magazine, wasn't there?
Joe Kendall.
From Joe, yeah, and really nice review in Prog magazine. But yeah, we just, the thing for me about it was that we just became friends with these guys, and we're still friends with all of the people we did those gigs with. They're just very nice people, and I'm very privileged to be friends with them.
Well, I think absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, especially in the current situation we're all in lockdown Britain, maybe people relate to this, but in the Fierce and the Dead Trojan Horse minibus, and it was literally just a minibus, there was 8 people, and we drove together for 7 days, and at the end of it we were really good mates. And I think that says something that to be locked in a kind of in a small space with that many people for that amount of time and still everybody's being really cool. I think that's a testament to the character of the people we spent that time with.
Yeah, we didn't fall out. I mean, Nick did knock my coffee out of my hand that time,
He did.
So, and as he knows, I've not forgiven him for it. And I was a very sad man.
That was amazing. To watch it was just like it was like it was scripted.
No, and to be fair, I will never forgive him. I will never forgive him for that. It was awful. But yeah, so then we came back after that, and we all went back to our normal jobs, or our normal things we do. And I tell you, when I went back to doing my day job after that, the Monday after the Saturday, I remember feeling crushed.
Yeah,
and it took me certainly a few weeks to get back to doing normal stuff. Yeah, and I think it's probably the same for all of us. It was a bit of a culture shock to come back. But people still talk about the Stabbing a Dead Horse thing, don't they? I think it was worth all the work we did for it.
Yeah. I think for us it was a turbo boost as well. I think without doing that, it would have taken us a lot longer to sort of get our act together, as it were. I mean, something we're still doing now. We're still getting our act together now, but it was a real, it was a real boost to sort of get that ball rolling for us, and just being able to perform the material, and most importantly, that yeah, sure, some of the gigs weren't as well attended as they could have been, but to turn up to Glasgow, the other end of the country, well, a different country, and have people there. That was the first time that kind of started happening for us, wasn't it? And then finding, in Bristol, somebody had driven 50 miles to come to the gig, or, for whatever reason, whether it's for us, Trojan Horse or Knifeworld, and to realise that there was interest in what we were doing.
Yeah. No, and I think for me, it was, you made me realise as a live performer, we weren't good enough.
Yeah.
And we had to really up our game. And I still think quite often we're not doing it good enough. My standards are very high. I think me and Steve, if you talk, we really got into drilling our guitar parts and really sort of going through them over and over again. I think talking to Knifeworld about how the way they learned their arrangements, just constant practice, and that was something that we'd come from a culture of we played in the Oakley in the 90s, but it was just very much about just turning up and sort of jamming and just getting away with it.
Yeah.
Whereas we kind of realised after this that we really had to learn the parts properly rather than just blagging it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the Oakley Arms in our hometown of Rushden, for all you fact fans out there, where we kind of formed.
And it's been really nice to see. Carvis has done. He's in Gong now, and
playing with Hillage,
doing the Hillage tour as well. And he's still the same really nice dude. And he's got a solo album out, which you should get.
Absolutely.
We did a gig. It was the last show we did before the all this happened.
The event.
And Carvis very kindly did an acoustic set with us, opening the show, and he was brilliant. Yeah. And I can't recommend his solo stuff enough, and go and check that out. When we've done all the when we've finished doing the sort of retrospective stuff on the podcast, we'll get him on as a guest as well, because he's a very good bloke.
Definitely. Well, there you go. We wanted to include this because it was just such a formative thing for us. So we just wanted to mention that in the tale of Fears and the Dead, as it were. So there you go. That's that. What should we talk about next time then, Matt?
Spooky action.
Spooky action. So there you go. That's going to be the next album, and also when we start getting involved with the reprobates at Bad Elephant Music.
Yes, those people.
So that's us done then, Matt. Anything else you'd like to say?
No.
There you go. Brilliant. All right. That's enough for now. Right. Well, stay safe, everybody. And what's the word this week, Matt?
Stiltskin.
Stiltskin.
It depends what generation you're from. If you might think of that as a children's book, or a Levi's orientated rock band.
Whichever way you want.
Did you remember that when that riff? Yeah, I do
remember that.
Yeah.
Stiltskin. There you go. All right. Take care, everybody, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.